Hi, I'm Cassidy Riley, and you're listening to Live and in Color with my very good friend, Wolfie D.
Hey, this is Jimmy Street, host of the Live and in Color with Wolfie D podcast. Hear the life and times of professional wrestler Wolfie D. From his time in the territories with PG-13 to his time in WWE, ECW, WCW, TNA, and more. Nothing is off limits and nothing will be held back. Thanks again for tuning in. Here he is, Wolfie D.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, one more time to Live and in Color with Wolfie D. I'm your host, of course, Wolfie Dizzle, and I got my co-host, Jimmy Street, here. What's going on today, my friend?
Man, I'm doing great, brother. You know, the one thing I will say about this is we've had such a great run of guests lately. You know, we've had Tommy Dreamer, Blue Meanie, Dean Hill, the great legendary Dean Hill, Steve Kern. Then we had Spellbinder, man, and now we got Cassidy Riley today, man. We are just hitting home runs left and right. I'm stoked about this interview.
I think I should have been a talent agent or something like that.
I'm thinking you should have, brother. Yeah, that would be excellent. Maybe that's your second career. You know, I know we got Cassidy coming up, man, and I'm super excited for that. But I got to throw this. Normally, I say this stuff during current affairs, but in this case, this is special for you, man. Did you see that lighter fluid super kick with Joey Janela?
Oh, Jimmy, don't even get me started. Stuff like this is just ridiculous, man. This kid ever look up, you know, we use flash paper. Lawler used flash paper. Eddie Gilbert, man, anybody that's thrown fire in the ring, it's a flash paper, man. It's not douse your fucking shoe with lighter fluid and your kick pad there, which are fabrics that are going to hold that shit in there. And my question was, who said, okay, let's do this? Also, who said this is okay? And then do you go to the promoter? I mean, and do you ask him, or is that just indie mud show bullshit where, hey, just go out there and do whatever, nobody cares? If it was me, I mean, seriously, I mean, I in a way, I get what he was doing. I mean, because I come up with shit like that. I mean, that's cool. Oh, let's throw a flaming super kick in there. And I did not see the buildup. I didn't see any of that. So if you can work it into a way, it would absolutely be a cool heel finish. But you've also got to understand, fucking have some, this motherfucker kicked him. And I'm not sure whether he thought by watching anime, because I looked some of that up, and there's a fiery kick guy, and there's all this, and I guarantee it came from some of this, or Street Fighter or something. But did he not ever go, all right, can I have some wet towels at ringside? Can I have a fire extinguisher? Something like that. Because what tells you I can soak my foot in lighter fluid, light it on fire, and let me guess, your kick is so hard and so cool that you're going to be like an anime guy, and you're going to, extend that energy from my foot that's on fire. It's going to extend and shoot out and flame and crispy fry this guy's head. Is that what he was looking for? Or was it, let me kick him and then my foot's still going to be on fire? Because he had to have a fucking out, right? I mean,
right.
Where the fuck is the fire going to go? If when I kick him, if it doesn't like shoot off my foot in some magical goddamn way, how is it going to extinguish itself? It's not going to. Why would you not have, if you're going to do something like that, I honestly feel like it should be, like a heel thing or something like that, if that was going to happen. And but the thing is, you got to go for wet towels just in case. I need a fire extinguisher, this, that. But no, nobody thought of that. They just thought that he's going to light his foot on goddamn fire and I'm going to kick you. And all of a sudden it's going to either go to your head and burn you, or it's going to extinguish itself. And no, that's not going to happen. I don't understand why these motherfuckers think the shit like that. I just don't understand the concept, man. I mean,
right.
What the fuck, man? Why would you light your foot on fire? And then I don't know if they teach us in school anymore. I don't know how old this guy is. Stop, drop, and roll. He stopped. He dropped, and then he started fucking banging his foot on the mat that looked like it wasn't even like a I don't know. To me, in the video that I saw, it looked like one of those slippery canvases.
Right.
I don't know. It didn't look like that. I mean, and that for sure is not going to put it out. And then people are pouring water on it. And then once they finally get it out, he fucking rolls over and covers the guy. Bless the guy's heart that had to fucking sit there and sell for a guy that, okay, he just kicked me. I'm selling for this flaming video game kick. And, well, now his foot's on fire and they're trying to put it out. But I'm still going to lay here and I'm going to fucking do the job for him because he is someone that has been, I guess, on AEW or something like that. If that is your way of trying to get back in the big leagues, that's probably not the way to do it, man. That's just stupid as fuck to me. I did something similar. Me and Sandman worked out. And the reason I say this is because we did it in a way where I didn't have to light my clothes on fire because that is your clothes, your shoe, your kick pad, all that.
Right.
Sandman came out. I'm beating up the ECW guys at the TNA arena outside. Me and him came up with something where, hey, don't just come in because he was the one who was going to be to save the day. And he comes in with a flaming kendo stick. Well, he hits me on my back, which was exposed, no clothes on it, no nothing that could catch on fire. You know what I mean? It's just fucking stupid, man. I just don't understand what the fuck these guys are thinking. This kid can get mad at me for thinking this way, but man, don't even get me fucking started on this dumb shit, man. It's fucking video game bullshit. This is not wrestling. I don't know if he understands that what we used to use back in the day was flash paper, but it wasn't lighter fluid on your shoe that you couldn't put out, and you also didn't take the repercussions of what should I do if this doesn't go out? Like I said, this is what I don't understand. Did he think that he was going to kick the fire like a video game? He was going to kick the fire off of his shoe into this guy. So then what's the next best thing? This guy's face catches on fire other than my shoe. Something was going to catch on fire.
Right.
And there was no, obviously they were pouring bottles of water. There was no, man, get me about 3 or 4, wet towels to smother it. There was no fire extinguishers, no nothing. It was just fucking blatantly stupid and dumb. And it could have worked out a lot worse than it did. Either dude's face, I mean, think about it. If the kick did splash some of the lighter fluid or whatever onto this guy's hair or face, that would have caught on fire. Oh, yeah. It just doesn't make sense to me, man. I mean, you're trying to get a pop. I don't know what the crowd was. I don't know what the crowd was there, but it wasn't enough to do that. And nobody thought it through, and just dumb. Just dumb.
Yeah. And I mean, if he would have been wearing patent leather boots or something that was slick, it wouldn't have been this absorbent material that literally he could not extinguish with a kick or the wind of a kick. I mean, I'm sorry, not even Sweet Chin Music would put out a fire foot, No. So, but Shawn Michaels just wouldn't do that. That's the other thing. So
no, exactly. But there's my, don't get me started, man. Don't get me started on this dumb shit.
And that introduces a brand new segment on Live and in Color with Wolfie D. Wolfie D with Don't Get Me Started. Advertisers, sponsors out there. This is a prime spot of the episode, and you want to sponsor that, let us know. It's open temporarily. All right, let's get on to Cassidy. What do you think, man? Sound good to you, brother?
Yeah. So me and Cassidy go way back, man, and we'll get into some of that. We're going to bring Cassidy on here as soon as we take this commercial break.
Be right back.
Esse episódio é um oferecimento de Adidas. É apenas uma abraçada que faz a diferença. Um arremesso. Uma cesta. É apenas um saque. Uma corrida. É apenas para os fãs. Afinal de contas, é só pressão. Vai que é sua. Adidas.
Hey folks, to get your official Live It in Color with Wolfie D merchandise, go to prowrestlingtees.com/live Wolfie D. Check it out.
If you're listening to Live It in Color with Wolfie D on Apple Podcast and like what you're hearing, go ahead and leave a 5-star rating. And while you're at it, write a review. Tell us what you liked. Tell us what you'd like to hear in the future. It's very important to us and always appreciated. Thanks again.
Okay, folks, we are back. Wolfie D's Live It in Color. And today, my guest is a good friend of mine who I've known for many, many years, Cassidy Riley. What's going on, my friend?
What's up, Wolfie? Hey, man, thank you guys for having me. It's an honor to be on your podcast amongst the other guests that I know you've had. I feel unworthy.
Oh, stop. Come on now. You're great in your own right, Cassidy. I was trying to think, and I couldn't remember. I guess it was, the late 90s when we met?
Yeah, it was probably 97, 98, somewhere in there.
Now, do you remember wrestling me? I think it was for a group called IWA at a casino in Louisiana, I believe.
And so, yeah, in Bossier City. It was at the Horseshoe in Bossier City. I remember it well because I remember it was for Rob Russin, I believe. And I just remember I was going to do a slingshot plancha to the floor. and as I grabbed the rope and load up and leaned back, my hands were sweaty or oily and slipped, and I busted my ass, and it hurt. Like, I remember falling on my ass, hurting as bad as it did that night. And then you just slid me right out of the ring, and we went right to work. But I remember just being like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that just happened."
Didn't I kind of cover it by trying to run away, like I wasn't going to be there?
Oh yeah, you covered it. You covered it beautifully, and then just pulled me out by my leg, and we went to work on the floor, and then right back in the ring, and just nobody knew the difference except for us. But it hurt my pride.
Good little match.
Yeah, good times, man. That was our first time to work together, and I'm pretty sure that was my first time getting to meet you. I knew who you were, obviously, but that was the first time I got to meet you.
So, what got you into this? And obviously, we know each other very well, but I've said this a number of times when I have guests on here who I've known forever, but we were also caught up in what we were doing as wrestlers. Unless I rode all the time or something, I don't know. I got to thinking, I don't know a lot about my quote unquote friends in the wrestling business. I don't know their real personal stories, man, because you just don't get into it.
And I'm the same way. Yeah, you just get so caught up in the moment, and you're on the grind 24/7, and you see each other for a couple hours a few times a week or whatever, and usually you're talking business, and But yeah, and I feel the same way. But no, I grew up in Louisiana, and I grew up watching Bill White's Mid-South, and they used to come to the Monroe Civic Center where I lived every couple of weeks, and we would always go down to the matches, and man, I just fell in love with it. It was some of for me, still today, that's some of the best wrestling in the world was the Mid-South territory. They had Rock and Roll Express and the Midnights were there, and Terry Taylor, Jim Duggan, Ted DiBiase, Junkyard Dog, and the list just goes on and on. It was just so good. It was hard not to be a fan if you ever sat down and watched it.
Yeah. And who broke you in?
Lolly Griffin, who wrestled as actually, I got smartened up by a guy named Freddie Grapp, who was a local indie guy down here, but he didn't have a ring to train me. But he put me in touch with Lolly Griffin, who was out of Mississippi, where they were running some TV out of one of the casinos in Vicksburg, and I ended up meeting up with him, and he ended up having a ring. But he worked as Crybaby Buxton and Global. So he had been around the Dallas territory and in the Southern Independents. But him and then Hillbilly Cousin Luke, Gene Pettit, were two of the guys that helped me. Gene was down here, and he was kind of helped booking for when Lolly was running shows, and they would have guys like Terry Taylor and Tommy Rogers in. So I got some ring time with some of those guys too. Tommy Rogers was one of the first guys I ever got in the ring with. And so, I mean, when you're learning from people like that, and having that supplemental training from guys like that, it's man, it was just incredible.
Yeah, no kidding. That's awesome.
We were kind of like you and mine age group. It was kind of like on the cusp of not having that anymore. We were lucky that was the last kind of round where you still got to, when you broke in, you get to wrestle guys that had experience, instead of two indie guys that have both been working for 6 months out there breaking their necks,
Yeah, there were still guys that could really work that were around and were working that you could learn from. And, up there was Lawler and Dundee, and down here it was guys like, and we were fortunate enough, we were able to work in places where they were at to learn from them. I feel like we were like the very last end of the territory days as our generation, but it was just incredible. I mean, I remember working at the Dallas Sportatorium. I got a chance to work at the Sportatorium before it closed down, and I just remember pulling up to the Sportatorium and my name was on the marquee one night, and I just thought, man, this is absolutely incredible,
Yeah, that's the same for me when I saw my name at the Mid-South Coliseum, the big scoreboard thing that was, in the middle of the deal that hung down. Put your name in lights up there for me. I had a picture of that for the longest. I don't know what I did with it, but it was a very special, just because it was the Mid-South Coliseum. So I know what you're saying.
Yeah. When you grow up watching those venues, and then you're there in some capacity, maybe not a headliner, but figured into the show, and you're a part of it. It just seems surreal for the first couple of times. And it's the greatest feeling in the world. And I think that's what we all continue to chase for years and years,
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's fast forward a bit, man. Let's talk about TNA and the Hot Shots. How did you guys get together?
I had tagged with Frank Paris, Air Paris, for a while, and we were the original Hot Shots. Well, then when Paris and AJ ended up signing developmental deals with WCW, we kind of stopped tagging, and that's about the time Chase was coming in to Nashville. It was just a year or so after that. And so Bert Prentice is the one who said, hey, I got this guy coming in. And Frank, after WCW, Air Paris, he wasn't wanting to do much. I think he was kind of jaded by the whole situation. So Bert put me and Chase together, and we started tagging around Nashville, and it just clicked, man. Chase is a fantastic worker, and we just had some really good matches with everybody around that Tennessee, Kentucky area, and that's kind of how it started.
Right.
And then to actually going into TNA, Jarrett and Jeff would come down to the Sportatorium when they were getting ready to start opening TNA, and they were scouting talent. I remember Bill Behrens was sending a lot of guys up from Georgia, and they were just looking at everybody from all around the area who they thought were, could come to work for a weekly pay-per-view company.
Right.
And it just kind of went from there. They saw us work, and I think the original plans were Mr. Jarrett had wanted to make us like a second version of the Fabulous Ones.
Yeah.
And then when ticket sales just didn't go so good that first week, then they had to start bringing in the big names. But we kind of got pushed to the back a little bit when that happened, and they brought us in like week 3 or 4 or something, but never did focus on us like I thought they were going to. But we had a great run there, and we just kind of made it our own, and and did what we did and enjoyed it.
I remember you and Chase worked me and Brian Lee. I don't know if it was just one time. It could have been more than once there at TNA. Do you recall ever working Jamie and I can't think of working you in a tag with Jamie.
I don't think, no, I've never got to work with you and Jamie together.
Huh.
Yeah, I know we'd worked singles, and I worked with you with Brian, and when you were doing Disciples of the New Church.
Right.
And, but I worked with you as Slash, but I never got to work with you and Jamie as PG-13, and I'm kind of sad by that.
Yeah, that just popped into my head. I was like, damn, I've known this dude for that long, but I don't think he's ever worked me and Jamie.
Yeah, you guys always seem to be in a different area than what we were.
Yeah,
we just never got the chance. I know you guys were doing a lot of WCW shots and on the Saturday night shows and stuff when we were kind of starting out in TNA, or right before we had started out at TNA.
Right.
me and Chase started tagging, so we just never got a chance to work with you guys.
Yeah.
Cassidy, again, thank you so much for coming on. So we don't really do this in a timeline per se. You know, Wolfie, we kind of treat it like a car conversation. So basically, I'm in the back seat. One of you are driving, whatever, but somebody, we're going to a show basically right now. And you guys are the veterans. You're teaching me some stuff here. So the one thing that I remember about you, I'm a musician and I was in a band and we traveled to Nashville and played a show. And I remember seeing you on Music City Wrestling TV. And then I moved to Nashville in 2004 and I'm watching, I think at that time was now turned to USA Championship Wrestling. Now I know it's a little bit of time there in difference, and there you were again. And so I was like, okay, this kid's got something. To me, it seemed like the big leagues. They look great. They're really talented. This is not the local Virginia shows that I'm seeing. These guys are really put together and doing good stuff. Talk a little bit about those two promotions and Bert and that time frame.
Well, I mean, I feel like it was the big leagues. It wasn't, it wasn't WCW, WWE, top of the mountain. But I mean, I feel like that was both of those companies were kind of right under that level, above outlaw independent shows or independent shows with no TV. They had TV that was syndicated in over 100 and something markets across the country. So there was a good bit of TV exposure, and that's where you learn to work cameras and, just that's where, for me, that's where cutting my teeth really came in. Like, I learned how to wrestle before I got there on the independents, but I didn't learn how to work until I got to USA Championship Wrestling or Music City Wrestling. Because then I was in there with guys like, Wolfie and Flash and, Corey Williams and Ashley Hudson, and just guys who were such good workers, man. And so for me, it felt like the big leagues for me too. And I was always happy to get there. I would drive 540 miles from Louisiana. And I remember that number. I'll never forget it. And that was one way just to make those TVs. And I would come in on like a Wednesday and would work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then usually home on Sunday. So they were running towns all over Kentucky and Tennessee. So for me, it's where I feel like I really learned how to work and really cut my teeth at.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're talking about Louisiana to Nashville for a dream, essentially. So I can totally relate to that as like I said, a former musician who got to travel some. What gave you, like you said, you love Mid-South, you love Bill Watts. I guess who were some of your heroes growing up? What are the wrestlers that you liked to watch as a young man?
I was always a fan of tag team wrestling. So, I mean, Rock and Roll Express is what really kind of hooked me into Mid-South. I'll never forget one of the first live events that I went to was an eight-person or a 4-team tag team match with the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnights, the Fantastics, and the Guerreros. And they just tore it up, man, for like 20 minutes. It was just, off the charts. And that style of wrestling hooked me from a young age. So I always loved tag team wrestling. I think my biggest success in my career has come from tag team wrestling. I've had some decent runs as a single wrestler, but most of my success, I feel like, has came from tag team wrestling, and it all evolves kind of back to that love of it that I found as a child.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you can tell that you were a fan of that's my favorite type of pro wrestling as well. Tag team. A lot of the current promoters don't really see the value in putting 4 guys out there versus just putting 2 guys out there. But to me, the tag team wrestling is where it's at for sure. And I totally agree with that. So who was your first tag team partner?
Probably Air Paris.
Yeah.
When I came into Memphis, I was doing single stuff. And when I came into Memphis, I came in for Bert for an NWA anniversary show. And I can't remember what number it was, but I was the Mississippi television champion. There's a little small independent company that had television in Mississippi. And so I had the Mississippi television title. And I came up, and they were part of the NWA as well. So they got to send a match. Well, it was me and another guy who was the Mississippi heavyweight champion, and it was just horrible. The match was horrible. It was god-awful. He got blown up, and nothing went smooth. It was just a rough night at the office. And I just remember I walked back in the dressing room, and I found Bert, and I apologized to him. I was like, hey, man, I apologize. That was nowhere near what it should have been, and I'm sorry. He's like, well, don't get dressed yet. I may have something else for you. So he sent us back. He sent me back out with Air Paris, and we worked David Young and Shane Eaton and tore the house down, man. It was like we had all been, working together for years. It just flowed so good, and it was just a fun match, and everybody was right where they needed to be. And so after that match, he brought me back in and said, hey, look, I want to bring you back up and keep you guys together, and we'll put the belts on you and, see what happens. And I was gung-ho. So, I was a singles wrestler until me and Paris started tagging together.
What a legendary name in the business, too. Air Paris, his name is beside just about everybody,
Right.
Funny.
He was a good guy, man. We had a lot of fun together, and he was young and hungry when we started, and so was I. And so it was just always wanted to go out and just really try to learn and work as hard as we could.
Yeah.
And Cassidy, you brought up a name I hadn't heard in quite a while. What a character. Oh, Styling Shane Eaton.
Look, I remember the first time I saw Music City Wrestling was before I ever started working there. I was in Detroit visiting some people, and it came on syndication up there, and Shane Eaton was one of the first guys that I saw when the show came on. Once I found the show on TV, it was about midway through, and I clicked on. It was Styling Shane Eaton, and he was cutting a promo with Byrd at ringside. So it was just, and then to be able to be in the ring with him later, Shane was such a character, man.
Yeah, I've had a number of matches with him, and he's done some incredibly stupid yet funny things. I know
exactly.
Steve Dahl told me the story that he had Shane shoot him off and told him, duck one, watch the clothesline. And so he ducks one. And then when
he goes back and watches,
he ducks down and watches the clothesline. And then there was another one where he told him something about, he had him give him something. So Steve's on his back. And told the next follow-up move was to drop the leg, and Shane literally picked up one of his legs and then dropped it.
I don't doubt it, man. And that's another name. Actually, when I was doing some independent shows for that little Mississippi company I was telling you about, Reno and Steve Dunn came in, the Vols came in, and they threw together a tag match with me and another guy, and I can't remember who it was, but I remember he screwed up the finish, and he was supposed to take the finish, and for whatever reason he forgot it, so I made him tag out, and I came in and went right to the finish and took it. And then Steve and Reno came back to Bert and was like, hey, there's a kid down in Mississippi that's pretty good. If you get a chance, you ought to bring him up. So guys like that give you the rub, and the nod, help advance your career. It was always fun, and I always loved working with the Vols.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I did too. Reno was a hell of a worker, man. I mean, I guess that's why he kept his job for so long in New York, because he could make anybody look, man, and Steve was good too.
And that's right, man. And Steve was good too. And then Reno, creative wise, he ran Saul for years and had a really great product when they were doing the Saul TV up there. So he was meant for this business.
He got all over me one time. I was managing Jeremiah Plunkett and Drew Haskins, and it was so hot. And I wore a suit, like a 3-piece suit. And so I thought, man, I'm going to sneak out here. Paul Adams didn't wear a jacket. So I'm going to sneak out here with just the vest and the shirt and my sleeves. And I was like, I'm going to sneak out and see if they don't. And I'll just say I forgot it. Oh, my God. Reno chewed me out when I got to the back. He was like, I never want to see you without your jacket on. And I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but he was like, you're getting across a look, and it made total sense, but he
had a vision and he knew what he wanted. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think that's what's missing a lot on the independent shows today. And so many guys run shows, but there's no real direction and clear vision of what the promoter wants for the talent to do. They just let them go out and do whatever and just say, have a good match. You can't do that, man. If you're going to grow a business, you got to have, these are the guys we're building. This is the team that we're building, whatever, and this is where we're going with it. And you have to have a plan set out, or it's just a bunch of shit thrown together. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
absolutely. Are you still actively working?
I am. Yeah, I'm still working mostly for a little company down here called Bayou Independent Wrestling that does shows in Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi. Nothing's over about 4 hours from the house, and I can make those trips and then be back the same night. So it works out good because, I have 2 kids, and also they're trying to do exactly what I was saying. They have stuff mapped out months in advance, and I try to help them and put, my experience in and where I can, and the guys that'll listen and just make it better. And it's fun for me too. So yeah, I'm still working some.
Got you. How old are you now?
45.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, man, and we'll just go ahead and we'll break it here. I mean, I've talked to some local radio about it here, but it's probably my last year. Yeah. I think I got committed to some dates like into January, February of next year, but I think I got like 6 or 8 more shows, and that's probably going to be it for me, man.
Yeah. I did, me and Jamie teamed back up a week or so ago, and then I'd done one more match before that, but that's 2 matches since 2016 when I tore my tricep. I got way too much stuff going on, and I'm saying this, and I think Jimmy's heard me say it before, but I just read, and we'll go ahead and bring this up, talking about Flair and Steamboat were going to wrestle. I guess Ricky put the kibosh.
Pulled out, right?
Yeah. So, and what he said was something to the extent of, I want people to he said us, talking about them 2 wrestling, but I said, more just for me. I want people, just like what he said, I want people to remember the ability that I had like in my prime and in my younger years. And I don't ever want someone to pay to come see me and be disappointed by my performance.
Well, yeah, and I agree with that 100%. And not only that, after a certain age, you know how we were when we were the young guys. We were like, oh, man, why aren't these old guys hanging around taking up a spot? And you don't want to be that guy, and you want to make room for the next generation that's coming in. You try to teach them on your way out. You leave the business better than what you found it. That's what I was always taught. And that's kind of how I feel about it. I don't want to outsay my welcome. Professional wrestling has been fantastic to me. It's taught me life lessons in the ring and out of the ring. It gave me a good living for a lot of years. I got to travel the world, and I got paid to do it. So, man, I don't want to leave. I don't want to tarnish it in any way, and I don't want to tarnish my name and what I feel like I've built over the years either.
So let me ask you just straight up, what's your opinion? Do you think Flair should be doing this?
I don't think so. I don't think he ever really wants to give up. I don't know, especially since he has a pacemaker. I think that's a bad idea. And to tarnish his legacy. I would like, if it was me, I agree with Steamboat. Man, those guys put on some hour classics. I mean, absolute fantastic matches. And I don't know if Flair's retirement could be any better than what it was with Shawn at WrestleMania. I wouldn't want to tarnish that,
Right. It cannot.
I think he's just one of those guys, especially, I think he's single again, and his whole life has been professional wrestling. So if it's either, he's back living that life he loves, and he just wants a little bit more of it.
Well, he said he wanted to die in the ring or under a wild woman. That's what he's always said. So I obviously don't
he's
want
working
either.
on both, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't ever want any of those to happen, obviously. Whoever you ask, he's number 1 or 2 or 3 ever of all time. But to me, you're right. He had the exact way out with Shawn, that perfect last beautiful match. It was. And Steamboat actually kind of had that with Jericho in 2010. And I don't think he wants to mess that up, So I agree, man. It was the perfect, beautiful way out. It was just so good. And honestly, after that, he even did stuff in TNA. But to me, Flair has no better ending than he did with Shawn Michaels.
And I agree. I agree 100%. And that's how you want to go out. You know what I mean? I think that's one reason why, if you watch the Undertaker documentary, why it was so hard for him. It's hard enough to walk away from something you love so much regardless, but it makes it a little bit easier if you can kind of go out feeling good and how you want to go out. For me, anyway, that's how I see it. That's kind of why I'm looking at winding it down. I can't stay in the shape I used to stay in. I feel like I'm still in decent shape, but I'm not in as good a shape as I was when I was 30. I don't have the 6-pack abs anymore. I can't bend. I'm not near as flexible. The bumps hurt a lot worse these days. It takes me longer to recover, and I don't want to be that guy just because that's all because I love it so much that I just keep hanging on to it forever. It'll always be a part of me, and I'll always help out, and I want to do some stuff behind the scenes, but my time in the ring is just, man, it's about done.
Yeah. That's good though that you see that and can, be okay with that, man. Because like I was saying, my point was a lot of guys, they can't. They can't
right.
And no matter what, I mean, I know for sure there's no way I could go out and do any more than what I did the other night, which wasn't much. And so
right.
I did it for the purpose of the nostalgia with bringing us back together. It drew a really good house for that event, and people were happy.
And it was fun, I'm sure.
Let it go.
Yeah.
You're not going to be like Darby Allin and getting up there and diving 20 foot off a ladder onto some chairs. Those days are long gone. You know what I mean?
Would you have ever done that bump though?
Probably when I was 25. Yeah, okay. But your body just can absorb stuff like that when you're his age. And hey, that guy's a tough kid, man. And he's kind of carved out his own niche. For me, like in pro wrestling, there's different niches, and he's kind of like a crash guy, like Jeff Hardy. That the big bumps are what kind of sets them apart from a lot of stuff. Their wrestling's great, but that's what they're known for. And I think he's just carved out a nice little niche for himself in that lane. And man, I think he's going to put together some really good matches with Jeff down the road. If I was booking, man, that's where I'd keep it for the next 6 or 8 months. I don't know if they could live to survive 6 or 8 month run together. But, man, it'd be fun to watch.
Did you see, though, because, Jeff was coming up, to catch him, and just the impact in which he hit and
Well, let's think about this logically for just 1 second. Let's dissect this logically. How about if we tell you, okay, we're going to lay you down on 8 metal chairs, and we're going to, what's Darby, probably 190 pounds or so? I mean, he's probably under 200. And they tell you, we're going to lay you down on 8 metal chairs, and we're going to throw 190 pounds down on you from 20 feet in the air. And just try to survive if you can. We're not going to give you any advice. Just try to live through it if you can. And that's basically what happened. It's crazy.
Would you rather be Jeff, or would you have rather been Darby in that scenario?
Oh, my God.
I don't know, man. Probably Jeff.
No
what do you think? What's your opinion? The guy catches?
I've always said it's easier to catch him. I don't give a fuck what you want to do over the top rope. I'm a pretty good catcher. So
well, that's the worst is when you get up there to do something and nobody does catch you. You know what I mean? That's the thought that's always going through your mind right before you pull the trigger and make that leap 15 feet in there. Are they going to catch me? And that sucks.
It's crazy. It's like that particular thing of catching guys is like gone out the window. It's like, why can they not stand? It's either they stand there forever looking at them, or they fucking miss them.
Yeah.
Well, that's like all the viral videos that you see of pro wrestling now. Half of them is somebody just not catching anybody worth a shit and just letting them go, and the guy just splatting or girl just splatting on the guardrail, splatting on the concrete, on the ladder, whatever it is. And so that's all the stuff like, man, and then like Sin posted something the other day in his snake pit group that he has on Facebook. And it was a guy that, they were in front of 30 people, and this guy takes a chair and just, like the most reckless chair shot I've ever seen, and just pounds this guy in the back of the head in front of 30 people. And like, this guy, if you don't know how to swing a chair, don't swing a chair. If you can't do it, and you sure don't kill somebody in front of 30 people, if anything, you go light until you figure it out. That's a perfect learning opportunity. Take it easy, and we can always bring a little more wood next time, but you don't kill people in front of 30 people with a metal chair, especially when you know how to swing it.
Completely reckless these days. Let's take a quick time out and get a word from one of my dope-ass sponsors, and we'll be right back with more Live and in Color with Wolfie D. Hey folks, this is Wolfie D here, and if you are looking to buy or sell a home in Tennessee or Southern Kentucky, you're going to want to call my buddy, the rock star realtor, Benji Bowie. And you say, Wolfie, how do I get in touch with this rock star? Well, you can call him directly at 615-390-8216. You can go to his website, bowiehomes.com. That's B-U-I-E homes.com. Or you can email him at benbowie34@gmail.com. When you need a home, you need the Rockstar Realtor.
Benji is a member of Exit Realty's Garden Gate team in Gallatin, Tennessee.
So not to get back onto Darby, because I totally respect your opinion, but honestly, the only thing I didn't really like about it, and again, you guys were the wrestlers, but it was on a Wednesday night for free, where I think Jeff would have done that at WrestleMania or something. I know that's...
Yeah.
And also, I don't know what you looked at. I don't exactly remember what you looked at 25, but what I've always remembered about Cassidy Riley is you've kind of always had the Benoit Kid Cash physique. Like, you were really well, solid, put together looking dude. Darby is not that. I mean, he's put together in his own right, but you actually had some protection on your body to take that bump. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
And I appreciate that, man. Thank you for that. But for me, it was like, I don't know. I kind of understood, because I feel like there was probably more eyes on the product that night because they were doing the Owen Hart Memorial. So, sure. And that's why I tuned in. I don't watch every week, but, full disclaimer, I don't watch every week, but I wanted to see what they were going to do with the Owen Hart tournament. So sure. I tuned in. And so I think, it was smart on his decision for that, because there's probably going to be new eyes, and he stole the show. I mean, with that bump, that match was incredible.
It was a show-stealing maneuver for sure. So, like we do, as always, we jump around on topics. And one thing that's always bugged me, and I've always wanted to ask you, so you had your run in TNA, you were chasing the hot shots, and then you did the run with AMW, and then you started this thing with Raven, and I've never really gotten the answer, and I guess it's kind of there or not. Was that the start of a new flock, possibly? That what you were doing?
I don't know if there was going to be other characters added to it down the road. I think it was more like, let's just do this now and see what happens. And then Dusty came in, and the plans were, I was with Raven for a while, and he never did really accept me. And then Dusty comes in, and he was going to, that was, Raven broke my fingers, and then Dustin Rhodes comes down and makes the save. Well, the plans from there were for me and Dustin to tag together, and eventually we were going to win the tag belts. But
gotcha.
Dusty ended up going back to WWE, and Dustin, I don't think, was probably in the best place in his life at that point in time either, and so things just didn't work out. But that was kind of the design and where it was headed.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I always felt like that was about to happen. And then obviously you ended up in WWE, ECW, OVW. Talk a little bit about that, man.
Well, when Dusty left TNA, like I just mentioned, he went back to work for WWE. Well, when he left, I was kind of labeled as one of Dusty's guys, and they didn't really want to do anything with me. They were trying to go in a completely different direction, and that happens when a new booker comes in. They want to take the company into their direction, which is why they were brought in. So they didn't really have plans for me. And so I called Dusty and told him what was going on. And after my contract was up there, he had put in a word for me, and he was the reason I went up to WWE. So I owe Dusty a ton of credit, man. He was always so good to me, and I loved him, and will be fond forever of what he did for me. But, man, I enjoyed my time at OVW. Again, I was in a tag team up there with Casey James, and Casey was a great worker. He had been down in Puerto Rico. He had started out in Nashville. We had met in Nashville, and then he went down to Puerto Rico and was there for several years, and then came up and was signed to a developmental deal. He had a little run with Aaron Stevens as a tag called The Teacher's Pet with Michelle McCool was there. Manager. So he had already had a little run on TV, and he liked tag team wrestling, and it just fit. And, we had the OVW tag belts, the Southern Tag Team titles up there 5 or 6 times. And I was really disappointed, man. At that time, WWE was not focused on tag teams whatsoever. And I feel like that opportunity was missed because we looked a lot alike. We wrestled a lot alike. We had a good gimmick. Yeah, and I just feel like some opportunity was missed there of not ever bringing us up and pulling the trigger and just letting us see what we could do on the main roster.
You know, I always thought you, Casey, and Chris Michaels would have made an excellent brother tag team too, like a 6-man as well. If you think about it, I always kind of thought you and Casey for sure resembled, and I always got a little of Chris Michaels from Casey as well, you know. So anyway, I know that's a little off topic there, but
no, but I agree. I think Chris would have fit in good because Chris is one of those guys that could work with anybody. And I remember the first time I ever got in the ring with Chris. Well, we were at a balloon festival in Greenville, Mississippi. And there was, you know, probably 1,500, 2,000 people there, and he and I tagged together. And he's one of those guys. He just got it, and we clicked. You know, it's just he was always a good worker. But again, he had been around guys like Steve Dunn and Reno, like Wolfie was talking about earlier, guys who had been around, and he learned from those guys, and that's why he was so good.
Yeah. You know, before we get to the next topic, I want to ask you, give me your best Dusty Rhodes impersonation.
Oh, I can't do it, man, because I feel like I'd be doing a disservice to the dream. But he would always say, I'm geniusing my ass off, baby. I'm geniusing my ass off. And I remember that when he was thinking, I'd laugh, he'd say, I'm geniusing. So that, you know, I love Dusty. God bless him, man. I'll miss him and always be grateful for him. Yeah. And that's another one of those guys, like, man, you grow up watching them.
Oh, yeah.
And then, you know, you get to learn from them. And that's one of those moments that's just like so surreal when you stop now where I'm at in my career and I look back on it. You know, you don't appreciate it at the time, like we were talking about earlier, but you look back and you're like, man, gosh, dog, I got to learn from Dusty. You know, I got to watch him book and learn, and the stuff that he's produced over the years. It's just incredible.
Oh, hey, yeah, for sure.
Cassidy, I've told this story on the show, but this is my Dusty Rhodes story. When he passed away, a guy hit me up on Facebook from like somewhere up in Kentucky or West Virginia or something like that. And he said, yeah, that's terrible about Dusty. He said, I remember that match you and him had that night in whatever town, he said. And I sent back, I said, I ain't never wrestled Dusty Rhodes.
And what did he do? Send you pictures of it?
Yes. It was the one and only time that I had ever worked him. And for whatever reason, and you know me, I didn't remember doing it. And
well, Wolfie, think about it. How many matches have you had over your career? I've been through the same thing. People will bring up something and like, I don't remember it at all. And then finally something will click and you're like, oh, yeah, I completely forgot I did that. Yeah. And when you think about the broad spectrum of your career and the things you do remember, and then you have those moments pop up like, oh, man, that's cool. And I'd forgotten all about it. I wish I would have kept better detail in my career as I went along. And if I had to do it all over again, I'd write down dates and towns I was in and people I worked. And
keep the fly.
I wish I would have done that more. Right.
Because back when we was breaking in, man, if you asked one of the other guys to take a picture with you, you were considered a fucking mark.
Yeah.
And I remember exactly. And then I when I first met Lawler, I was probably 7 or 8 years into my career by then. I was just asking him for some advice. I said, if you could give me any advice, what would you give? He said, take more pictures. I wish I would have taken more pictures along the way. And so after that point, I kind of started, but it was still kind of taboo. You know, you would do it, but then it was becoming a little more acceptable. But for real, I mean, they would be like, oh, look at this Mark wanting a picture with Jerry Lawler or Wolfie. You know what I mean? So you were scared of being labeled, and so you just didn't do it. You just sat over there. You shut up unless you were, spoken to, and you listened and you learned, and that's how it was.
We're also considered a mark if you valued your title belt too much. You know, that was kind of another taboo thing that, man, now these motherfuckers, they win it. They, it's on Twitter. As soon as they come back from the ring, they done won the NOP title.
Yeah. You wouldn't put it over, man, back when we were coming up. If you would, like, when you first won your first one, you tried to no sell it, but inside you were just like exploding with happiness. He's like, it's not that big a deal, no big deal. Because you don't want anybody thinking you're apart.
Oh, yeah, sure. If they think I deserve it, it's cool.
Yeah.
So I'm going to switch gears real quick and ask you this. Let's talk about this. Have you ever, and now I'm talking about from a big company down to the smallest company, have you ever refused to finish and left an arena?
No. Never, ever, ever, ever. Have you?
Yes.
Have you really?
I did it. Well, me and Jamie did it too. And this was nothing. This is why I said the spectrum would be from one end to the other, the size of the, company, if you want to call it. But I did it. Me and Jamie did it to Buddy Wayne one night, somewhere around Memphis, because he wanted us to drop the straps to these two guys that had just came in, and we're the champions, and we got TV the next morning, and we're in an angle with fucking rock and roll or something, and it's like we can't fucking do that. We're out of here. So.
Well, that's understandable though.
Yeah,
that's completely understandable. But I was always like. I don't know. I was always, whatever you're paying me, I'll do what you need me to do type of guy.
Yeah, exactly.
I may have not agreed with it, and I may have not liked it, and I may have bitched about it a lot later, but I would. I never didn't do it and never left the arena, and never did not go back for business later if that did happen.
And especially, because you know where I'm going with this, especially that. Man, she's making lots and lots and lots of money.
Oh my God.
But you're told, it's not like, an indie show or something. She's some indie person making a quick $100. No, she's making a lot of money. And it's just like, be grateful for the position that you have.
Yeah.
Because there's people who would absolutely die to be in that spot who love wrestling and are good and probably deserve it. And who wouldn't complain a bit and do whatever was asked. And to me, I don't know, that's just kind of like how I was brought in the business is you were there to do a job, no matter what it was, whether you agreed with it or not, you did what they were paying you. But at that level, especially, and that's to me, I think you start buying into your own hype too much. When you get there, you forget where you came from. You forget what it was like to make $100 at an indie show because you're making millions now and it doesn't matter. But what they don't realize is, man, you can be back down at the bottom just as fast as you were at the top. And that's the kind of stuff that gets you there.
Right.
Yeah.
Because then you become a problem. And nobody wants a problem in their locker room. Yeah. Nobody wants to deal with it. And, there's enough going on. You want everything to run smooth. Your talent has to trust that you have a vision to where you want your company to go. And it's your company. So if they ask you to do that, if you don't like it, or you can leave, then go start your own company and do things your way and see how hard it is and how successful you are doing it. There's a reason they're at that level.
Yeah.
Talking about the company,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've talked a lot about it, but we do have a little segment called Current Affairs. So if you guys want to talk some current affairs, I've got a few more we can talk about since we've kind of interspersed them into the show. You cool with talking a little more about current stuff, Cassidy?
Yeah, man, I'm down for whatever you guys want to talk about. I just enjoy the conversation. It's good to put out there for everybody listening, some of our thoughts on stuff. I enjoy having my perspective out there a little bit.
Absolutely. Yep. Well, we'll be right back with Current Affairs. DJ, hit the music.
It's a current affair. It's a current affair. Love it in color. It's a current affair. Love it in color.
All right, we're back with Cassidy Riley and Current Affairs. And honestly, I just always like to start out whenever we have a guest. And I know we've talked about Jeff Hardy, Darby Allin, we've talked about Ric Flair's return, all these things, but really just talk about current wrestling and who are some of the workers that you really enjoy watching right now?
Well, I think it's like guys like Randy Orton, AJ Styles, Seth Rollins. I've enjoyed seeing what Cody's doing back in WWE. I was happy to see how they're handling that situation. And, some of the AEW product that I've been able to catch, all those guys are really good. Bryan Danielson and Punk going back to AEW, I thought was interesting. So I like to keep up what they're doing. And, MJF, I think, is probably one of the best heels in all of wrestling right now. I think that kid's going to be able to write his ticket as far as his future goes. I think he's just incredible.
Yeah, he's definitely got that. People kind of compare him to Piper and things like that. He's got an element about him that's actually fully original too, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's the thing. He's different than anybody else out there. If you just give him a microphone and his work's good too. I think that's a really good comparison between him and Piper. I have not heard that yet, but I think that's a great comparison. He's kind of the modern era Roddy Piper. Just give him a microphone, but his work can back it up too.
Yeah, and he loves being a bad guy. He doesn't even care. I mean, he's a live the gimmick villain, you know?
Right.
So
yeah,
that's
how you have to be to have stuff successful.
Yeah, yeah. So out of the current crop, who would you have liked to have been able to have hooked up with? Who do you think really would have meshed well with you, just from visually speaking?
Well, I would have loved to have been able to work with FTR in a tag match. I think those guys are so good, man. And they really get it. And I think, again, that's one reason why they've been as successful as they have, is because it's just great old school storytelling tag team wrestling. You know, it's not a ton of high spots, and the stuff they do, you know, that's big is placed where it needs to be in the match, and it's just great. Good. I mean, to me, it's just really great storytelling, old school wrestling. So I would have loved to have been able to have a tag match with those guys.
Oh man, Hot Shots FTR. Good Lord, I'm getting chill bumps right now. Yeah.
One of the first TNA tapings, when Chase and I had a chance to hook up with the Briscoe brothers.
Man.
But the match was interrupted because they were trying to push Malice, who was the Wall at WCW. They were pushing Jerry, so Jerry comes down and just cleans house and destroys everybody. But I would have loved to have had to been able to finish that out, you know, in my prime with us against them, and I think that would have been really fun too.
So tell Wolfie, I know he knows who the Briscoes are, but how awesome would a Briscoes PG-13 feud have been? Like, think about that.
Oh, it would have been incredible.
Yeah.
And Wolfie, have you not seen a lot of their stuff?
No, I haven't, man. And Jimmy tells me he tells me that all the time.
Oh yeah, man, it could have. Oh my God, that would have been so good. That's so good, because they're a set of characters too, man, and they're different, but their work's really solid. And yeah, that would have been, dude. I would have paid money to see that, and that could have headlined some major arenas around this country for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And I keep telling him FTR's doing this tag team deal throughout the year. Maybe he and Jamie can get him, you know, in the fall or something, and show him a little PG-13 love. But
that's right.
Yeah.
You know, and Ricky and Robert are hanging it up there on their farewell tour. I'd love to have one more run with those guys too, and be able to lace it up with them one more time before they call it a day.
I said the same thing. I would love to have me and Jamie work them one more time.
Oh man, in Louisville? Yeah. Can you hook that up in Louisville, maybe? Oh Lord, you know.
That sell tickets. There's no doubt that sell tickets.
Yeah. So, okay, that's cool. And so it sounds like you're a fan of all. So with AJ Styles, to me, I love AJ. I'm a huge fan of AJ. I've been a fan since the X Division, all those days. I remember even seeing him at the end of WCW, la-di-da. Do you think they could be doing more with him right now, or is he just kind of met his level, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I feel like he's figured in as a top guy. I mean, you can't have everybody as a top guy all the time.
Yeah,
you have to choose the guys that you're gonna put a little steam on. And right now, it seems to be Cody. So you can't have. But for me, I mean, he's in that upper echelon, and I'm a fan of his because I've watched him work since he started down for Bill Barons and come through Georgia, and then some stuff that around us. So it's always fun for me to see guys that I came up with like AJ that are doing really well. You know, I enjoy keeping up with him, and that's probably one reason why he's one of my favorites, is because I've known him for so long, and just happy to see the success he's having. You know, for me, I was never guilty or I never was jealous of success that other people were having. I was happy for them. You know, I wanted everybody to do good.
Yeah. That would be great. You know, and I don't know. I'm just a fan of his. And, you know, I typically fall back into fandom and say, well, if my guy's not winning everything. But anyway, I'm a big fan of AJ. But anyway, so recently in Augusta, Georgia, at IWE Wrestling, there was a wrestler named Joe Black who got out of the ring and we don't really see much more before the video starts, but Joe seems to flip the fan's hat off and give him the double birds, and that good old country strong Georgia boy throws a headbutt on him. Talk about that for a second.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how pretty was that headbutt. That was a really nice headbutt, man. You got to give that guy props. I mean, that was the first thing. When I watched that video, I stopped it right there and rewound. I was like, that was a good headbutt, man. Let me see what that is. You know, he threw that thing with some malice and some intent. So good for him. But for me, I don't, I think you have the problem when, what's his name? Joe Black. Is that right?
Right.
When he touches the fan and flips his hat off, I think, man, get your heat and stay over, but make them, if you want to make them so mad, they come over the barricade. You don't need to go over over that boundary line to get them. I mean, he have your heats where they want to come over that barricade and kill you. And then it's fair game. But, so if it was me, I probably wouldn't have flicked the guy's hat off. But, again, I wasn't there. And you only see snippets of that clip, so you don't know the full story.
Yeah, see, and that's something else that this brings up another topic that I like, of the fact that way the wrestling business is now. Back in the day, and this was something you and I were both on the cusp of once again, was real heat when they really didn't like. Today, I feel like it's almost impossible, is the word I'm going to use, to get legitimate heat because of how much the fans know. And it is very hard for me to walk out there and piss you off legitimately if you know that I'm trying to piss you off. You see what I'm saying?
You're 100% correct. 100% correct. I agree with every single word you just said. So, it's almost impossible because the business has been so opened up and exposed over the last 15 years or 20 years or whatever it was. And to where it's almost impossible to get real heat. And so if you don't have real heat, it's hard to have a really hot baby face too, it goes hand in hand.
Right. So my last current affair is a suggestion. There's been a little trouble garnering somebody to come in with the Rock and Roll Express. So I think let's take the Rock and Roll Express out of the scenario. And I'm thinking PG-13 Cassidy Riley needs to step up to challenge Flair and FTR. How about that?
I would definitely be down for that. But I would have to do a little bit harder training before I'd want to get in there with FTR, because I wouldn't want to be able to be a step behind. You know what I mean?
Right.
Those guys are so good, and at where I'm at in my career now, in my prime, I would have given anything just to go in there and just rip it down with them. And I feel like I could still have a really good match with them, but probably not up to my expectations and my standards of where I would want.
Yeah.
But I would be down for it for sure.
Are you going to be in town maybe for SummerSlam at all? In Nashville?
I had planned on it.
Yeah.
Hey, Cassidy, I wish you could have been there for that last match we did, man, to see just how blowed up Jamie got. Dude,
was it bad, Wolf?
I actually did a little bit of training, so I wasn't too bad, but I was a step off myself. But man, this motherfucker got out of the ring. You remember that karate thing that he used to do? He got blowed up doing that. And then he literally got out of the ring and would not. It was time to start the heat. We needed to go, and refused to get in the fucking ring. He walked away.
You had to take the heat?
No, fuck that. Because I was doing the finish and everything, and I couldn't. He would have basically. Not in the match, so I got Chris back in there, and we did a little spot and grabbed a hold for a minute. I kept going, and even the fans knew, man. It was so funny. They were going, breathe, Jamie, take a deep breath.
That's the worst. When you're in the middle of the ring and you're telling the fans, and you can hear them saying that shit to you, then you actually stop thinking, that's probably what I need to do, and then you start doing it. He's like, thanks, that actually worked. But yeah, man, I've been in the rings a few times with the guys, and they'd start chanting that. I was just, oh my God, it's so funny. Yeah, how long has it been since Jamie had been in a match?
I don't know for sure. I don't know if I think he's done some independent shows in the past few years. I think. I don't know. We kind of got a little heat with each other and hadn't talked there for a while. But I don't really know.
Yeah. Well, I was glad to see you guys put all that aside and be able to have another night together.
Yeah. The thing was,
especially for
most of that work, I was trying to work with him, and he took it all personal and shit, and then threw some real low blows at me that I thought were unnecessary. Because I was seriously. Right. Fuck, I made a puppet of the guy and fucking had fun with it. And you know what I'm saying? I was just working, but whatever.
I remember you texted me immediately after you said all that, and you were like, all right, now let's start working. And I said, do you think he's going to take it seriously? And you were like, no, man, he knows me, And after that, I was like, okay, that's really good. I think that could actually be some positive.
It goes back to the deal. always work, right? You're always working. You're always, you know what I mean? Whatever the situation gives you, you work out of it or into it or whatever. And that's what happened. And he wasn't able to make the shot. Then you're always working. So let's turn this around so we can do something to draw some money out of it.
Yeah. I mean, all I was doing was just trying to make it interesting for people to watch, and they did.
Yeah.
Well, because people are talking about it already, right? They're not going to not talk about it. So you have to do something with it because it's out there.
Right.
So you're working.
Yeah. And it went viral. It really went viral. It was great for our podcast because, Wolfie's name's getting put out here and all these things. Like recently on this show, Wolfie says this and all that. And we still say one of our guests is going to be Jamie Dundee, and we'll get him on here one day. But Jamie is the king of working, So he's
a Dundee.
Yeah. But anyway, Cassidy, it's been great to have you on, man.
Hey, man, thank you guys. Like, I literally have enjoyed sitting here just getting to reminisce a little bit, talk about the modern day product and what's hot, and visit with my good buddy Wolfie and you, man. So thank you guys so much for having me. It was an honor to be on the show. Thank you.
Cassidy, what do you have coming up, man? Tell the people where they can find you.
July the 9th, I'll be back with BIW, and we're going to be back in West Monroe, Louisiana, which is my hometown. Our last show there completely sold out, had to turn people away. So hopefully, hoping for another sellout at July the 9th. And I'm tagging with a guy named Bam Bam Malone, who's out of Texas. He's a young and upcoming guy that's going to have a great future ahead of him. So just trying to lay a little foundation and help him out. And we've been having a really successful little run down this way. So it's been fun. So July the 9th, West Monroe, Louisiana. West Monroe Convention Center for Bayou Independent Wrestling. Come check it out if you're anywhere in the area.
That's awesome. What about socials or Pro Wrestling Tees? Anything like that where they can find you online?
Yep. I'm on Twitter at Cassidy Riley. I hadn't been real active there lately, but I'm always on Instagram, Facebook. So just look me up and add me, and I'm always putting what's going on, whether it's, a lot of personal stuff and family stuff, but also my wrestling stuff out there. So if you're a fan and want to keep up, I'd be honored for you to check in, like, subscribe, whatever.
Yeah, that's awesome. Make sure y'all do that. Well, Wolfie, you want to take us out, brother?
Yeah, man. Once again, Cassidy, I really appreciate you taking your time and coming on the show and just bullshitting with us, man. It's been really fun.
Hey,
good talking.
It's always good getting to catch up with you and spend a little time with you. So thank you, Wolfie. I love you.
Love you too, buddy. All right. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Once again, this is Wolfie D with Live It in Color and my co-host, Jimmy Street. And let's once again say thank you to Cassidy, the Hotshot Riley.
And now a word from our sponsor.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Chic, Jared, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all, and all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Join me, Gene Jackson, for the Jackson Interaction Podcast, where I'll be doing one-on-one interviews with people from the world of professional wrestling, as well as stand-up comedy. You can get them anywhere podcasts are available in both video and audio form, but you can find them all at genejacksonpod.com.
That's right, it's the talk of Middle Tennessee, the channel you love to hate and the channel you hate to love. It's Brian Turner from Brian Turner's VHS Rehab. And if you're looking for matches from Wolfie D to Jerry Lawler to Dusty Rhodes and the team that put a pimp before your eyes and a goatee between your thighs, Booty Call and Athena, go to lostwrestling.com. See, I made it easy for you. Brian Turner's VHS Rehab. Booyah.
If you're a fan of rock and music, I'd really appreciate it if you took a moment to check out my podcast. It's called the Decibel Geek Podcast. We've been doing it for about 10 years now. We talk about Kiss. We talk about Ozzy. We talk about Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses and Metallica. We talk about all the legends from the 60s and on, up to brand new bands that you should be hearing about today that you're not going to hear on the radio. It's Decibel Geek. Wherever you find your podcasts, you'll find us there. If you love rock and roll, I can almost guarantee you're going to love my show.
Hey everyone, this is Shane from Insane Shane's World. I release wrestling figures of enhancement talent, mid-card wrestlers, and wrestlers that you never thought would have a figure available. So if you're interested in adding a really cool and rare figure to your collection, then don't hesitate to contact me at shamtheman73@gmail.com. That's SHAMtheman73@gmail.com. You can also join my Facebook group. Just search Insane Shane's World.
So that was another great episode. Hey, Wolfie, tell them where they can find you on social media.
Jimmy, they can find me in the club, bottle full of bub. I'm just kidding. They can find me on Facebook. My personal page is Warren Wolf, WOLFE. I'm on Instagram at WarrenWolf13.
You can always find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Live Wolfie D. Here's the thing. Wolfie always has offers for his autographed photos. He has a selection of some awesome photos from throughout his career that he will autograph and personalize any way that you want him to. Just contact him either directly at his personal Facebook page or through any one of our other pages, and we'll make sure you get in contact directly with Wolfie. Get those photos, right, Wolfie?
Yeah, I've got some good stuff on there, to help with the podcast.
Folks, if you can't get out to a show to meet Wolfie D, there's nothing like that, especially for the fans of PG-13 and Wolfie D. And before we go, you can always find me, your host, Jimmy Street, at James Rock Street on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
And hey, Jimmy, before we go real quick, I just want to add in there, from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate, first of all, the work you've done for this podcast. You have worked your butt off. Secondly, the people that are liking the page. Beyond that, even more, is the people that are listening, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah, and remember, guys, the podcast drops a new episode every Monday at noon, and our past episodes are streaming now on demand on all major podcast formats. Thanks again.
I got a cap for your dome.
He got a cap for your dome.
I got a cap for your dome.
He got a cap for your dome.
He got a cap
for your dome.
And here we go, the original white boy that came out sagging, not bragging, don't be hating, cause I'm spitting the truth, still livin' in color, from rush your mother, utilize a hubcap, unlike any other. Back in the day, I was N-O-D, and I was P to the G, plus the 1 and the 3. In case you forgot, they call me Wolfie D. Been cloned and copied so many times, tired of suckers taking credit for what is mine. You know who you are without me name dropping. Wrestling's first white boy coming out hip hopping. Been doing it like this since '92. Laid low for a while and you thought I was through. Listen real close to these rhymes that I've injected. This shit's so sick it makes your ears get infected. Mad skills, no faking, there is no one great. Cause I'm bringing more folks than Obi-Wan or Vader. Not here to play games, so you better beware. You don't like me, so what? I really don't care. Like time I keep ticking and I can't be stopped. You sucker step to the side unless you wanna get dropped. With my finish, I'll straight knock you out. Please allow me to tell you what it's all about. I'm gonna wind it up, then I'm driving it home. It's Wolfie D, baby. I got a cap for your dome. I got a cap for your dome.
He got a cap for your dome. He got a cap for your dome.
This has been a James Rock Street production.